AFA Today. Glad you're with us. Kevin McCullough, glad to be with you every single day here on AFA Today. Today coming to you from our New York studios. And a couple of stories already that we broke. George Zimmerman was spotted today. He was helping, the first time he's been seen since his trial. He was seen helping a victim in an overturned truck. And ABC News and Fox News both reporting that that's the first time he's been spotted since the trial. You know, he's under death threat, so I don't blame him for not sticking his neck out there very often. But not uncommon for him to be a good Samaritan in one of those situations, and again, kind of living up to that reputation. Speaking of reputations, we've got an interesting story that was developing over the weekend on out of Texas last week, and you were listening to this show. You know it for yourself. That it turned out to be a big win for the pro-life movement. And the folks that were kind of most hard hit by the Texas advancement of the legislation that protects children and women in late-term pregnancies, it seems to be the feminists. Feminists seem very angry about this, and especially very highly educated feminists seem to be very angry about this. In fact, they've kind of taken the viewpoint that if you oppose them, you're anti-woman altogether. In fact, they've even gone a little bit, I don't know, I would call it kind of around the bend. But maybe I'm not being fair. This is Melissa Harris Perry from the weekend show that she does on MSNBC. Take a listen.
But does do her work in Texas. In case you were wondering about that background, Chloe Angel, Dr. Willie Parker, Blair Kelly, and David Webb, thank you all so much. Also, I just have to show these. My producer Lorena made for me last week some tampon earrings because, of course, you'll remember that the Texas state legislature said that you couldn't bring tampons in when they were going these women to, in fact, stand up for their own reproductive rights. You weren't allowed to initially to bring tampons. So just in case that ever happens again, ladies, you can just bring them on your earrings. And just so you know, we are now going to...
And then she goes on to tease the next segment of her show. Friends, this is the intellectual response of the pro-abortion side of the argument. I want you to think about this. Now, first of all, Kevin, why were they banning feminine products at the state protests? Oh, I don't know. Maybe because they had gotten wind that loads and loads of feminine products were going to be thrown at the legislators and the pro-life supporters. They also confiscated jars of human waste and other things that were to be used as objects to be thrown at people. Now, Melissa Harris Perry is a college professor. She lectures Monday through Friday in her university job, and then she does media on the weekends on MSNBC. But she's one of the she's also the same media member that told us a few weeks ago that our children aren't really our own, that they belong to her and everybody else in the society. But this was the reaction. She dons a pair of earrings made out of feminine products on the show, on camera, live, reducing the debate to what? How does that advance the cause of what? I mean, she believes she's taking a brilliant, valiant stand in doing this little on-air thing that she did. And I look at it and I say, this is where our media is headed. This is where the future of the news gatherers and opinion givers in America. This is the quality of coverage we're going to get. That's the summation of the the Texas legislation that went forward and was signed into law that protects women. You're going to reduce it to that? Let me just demonstrate for you a couple of questions that I had for Ms. Harris Perry. Maybe you can add a few before we're done. I was very curious how she thought about a couple of things. One, how would she deal with all of the women in the state legislature? that actually voted in favor of the bill and actually advanced that legislation to protect women and children, like Dr. Donna Campbell that we had on this show, accomplished emergency room surgeon, co-signed the bill, went on media like our show to defend it and to advance it. Is Ms. Campbell in some way, State Senator Campbell, is she in some way against women because she advanced that legislation? And the last question I have for Ms. Melissa Harris Perry is this: if you're going to insist that abortions take place, and this is a legitimate question, I'm not being sarcastic or anything, this is a legitimate question. If you're going to insist that abortions take place, do you really want them going to abortion clinics that all look like Kermit Gosnell's place, his little house of butchery? Because that's what, in essence, will cause 37 of the 40-something, 37 of the 42 current abortion clinics in Texas, that's what will cause them to have to shut down. They're below par in their standard of sanitation and surgical safety. So this legislation required some refining of that, making sure that you don't leave women out there to die because you have poor facilities and poor doctors that aren't, well, I don't even call abortionists doctors, but poor medical practitioners that don't have the ability to do what they need to do. Is Melissa Harris Perry advocating, and maybe you can answer that for me, is she actually saying, yes, what we want is unsafe abortion clinics, unqualified doctors, and we want to kill children once we know they can feel pain? Is that what she's really saying? Because it sounds to me that's like what she's saying. And this is a university professor. She's educated. She's highly degreed and credentialed, probably has tenure at her school, probably never has to worry about not having a job again for the rest of her life. So if you take out competition, you don't have anything really to compete for to be the best. But here's what it boils down to. She just doesn't have the ability or the desire, one of the two, and I'm not sure which it is, to admit the truth that women and children are safer because that legislation passed than they were before. That's what Kevin McCullough says, and I didn't use any fancy feminine products in the display of that little keen fastball of common sense that came your way, Melissa Harris Perry. 888-589-8840, your thoughts on this, 888-589-8840. We're also taking your calls on the War Memorial and the Zimmerman stuff, anything we've covered on the show. Let's talk to Taylor in Virginia. Hi, Taylor. Welcome. You're on with Kevin McCullough. Glad you're here.
Thank you, Mr. McCullough. How are you?
I'm doing very well for a Monday. Thank you.
All right. Well, I called earlier about the War Memorial, and I wanted to try to give you some encouragement, some hope, and give you an idea from a totally different perspective.
Tell me what you're thinking.
Well, it can be described, most accurately, are a lot in the truck. I enjoy hearing a different point of view, but I'm on the opposite of a lot of specific issues. But I think the people there, you care about what you're doing, you're sincere, and you're giving your side of the story. And just wanted you to try to hear from somebody.
Taylor, you're taking a long time to set that. We get it. You disagree with me. We get to the point of what you want to say.
The main point is I agree with you. There's a lot of people that think like I do that are not offended at all by a cross.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. So what you're saying is you may not be in favor of overt religious expression, et cetera, but seeing something like that doesn't bother you when you walk past it.
Absolutely not. And the more we can talk about it, the more, the ideas can share freely back and forth. The problems come when money is involved, of course, like everything else. But you have friends and neighbors and coworkers all over the whole world that think completely differently, but want to solve problems and not create them. It's just
I appreciate that, Taylor. That's a very honest and candid and very kind thing to say. yes, there are people that say horrifically mean things about myself, this network, everything associated with Americans and families. But that's interesting to hear someone, I guess he's saying that he's an atheist or something of that ilk, saying he wouldn't be bothered at all if he saw a cross on that memorial. Let's talk to Jason, also from Texas. Hi, Jason. Welcome. You're on AFA Today with Kevin McCullough. Glad you're here.
Hi, thank you so much for taking my call. I'll try to be brief. Sort of surprising to hear the previous caller. I actually am an atheist myself, and I agree 100% with you that this war memorial stuff is way, 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 way out of line. This went through a democratic process, and I feel like if there was anything other than a cross at that headstone, there wouldn't be a problem. If it was the Star of David or a symbol of Islam or something else, we wouldn't even be having this debate, which I find interesting. And I can tell you as a baseball fan myself, I don't go to baseball games looking to think about politics. Nobody who's going there to see a game is really even going to stop to notice that, much less be offended at it. And I'm a little bit offended at my fellow atheists for blowing this out of proportion.
Well, Jason, I appreciate your candid call as well. Thank you. Two very interesting callers back to back. Let's talk to Wendell, who I don't know where he's calling from, but Wendell, welcome. You're on with Kevin McCullough on AFA Today.
Well, in a free speech society, which our Constitution guarantees in our country, I just expect to hear offensive opinions expressed. So I always wondered, where in the world did this idea come from that, thou shalt not be offended by anybody in their speech? And that's what seems to be driving all this protesting and legislation is, somebody got offended. Well, so what? I mean, don't you expect to be offended in a free speech society? I mean, I always did. I don't understand why people have a different expectation and then say, "Ooh, I got offended," by somebody's speech.
Wendell, I appreciate your candidness as well. It seems like we've got a lot of people that normally wouldn't agree with me on probably a lot of things, but they're saying the actions of this judge are a little bit overboard, and of course he did it at the behest of the American Humanist Society, and their actions are quite simply they're trying to keep a war memorial from being built to honor the fallen dead because it has a cross and a Star of David on it. 888-589-8840. We also, I played you that little soundbite from Melissa Harris Perry, if you've got a reaction to that. The idea that we can reduce this discussion of saving and preserving women's and children's lives to basically an on-air temper tantrum. And the implication is if you disagree with me in some way, then you must be the one who's nutty. That's the most offensive part about what Melissa Harris Perry is implying there. That people that were not allowing them to take in patently offensive things to throw at others. Why else do you have a big bag of this and a big bag of that, and you're trying to sneak into a session if you're not going to use it in some illegitimate way? 888-589-8840. Let's talk to Bob in Virginia. Hi, Bob. Welcome. You're on AFA Today.
Hi. Thank you for letting me be on your program.
Sure thing.
As far as Miss Harris goes, if she's so concerned about women, why didn't she teach them how to control their sex? And then on the cross, I'm just wondering how one judge can outvote a town who wants to have the cross. I mean, what happened to our rights?
It's probably the same way the one judge on the Supreme Court was able to redefine marriage all by himself in the recent cases of DOMA and the Prop 8. Very interesting, the power of judges. Very dangerous if applied wrong, and oftentimes at odds with people that do think clearly and want to live clearly, which is kind of the goal of why I want to do this every day. I want to help you think through these things, remove confusion, obliterate it, tear it to shreds, replace it with clarity, and then let's move forward with discussions and lives of clear thinking. We can do that, can't we? I'm Kevin McCullough. Coming up on tonight's Kevin McCullough Show, much more of the news and headlines from the day. You do not want to miss that. And we will talk to you again tomorrow here at this time, 1 Eastern, 12 Central, on AFA Today. Have a great afternoon.